All right, shalom, family. And we say welcome back to the kingdom of Israel. And today we are going to look at prophecy 2026. We are going to go over the American Negro problem, right? Let me start off, as usual, by expressing this is not your usual biblical conversation dealing with religious pretense, those coming from Christianity, Catholicism, Judaism. I assure you, those things are fabricated. Those things are made up. But the writings that are in this book that today is called the Bible, these writings are true. Yes, although the colonizer, he captured the book and he created his own narrative and tried to give it back to the people in his own perverted way, that doesn't take away from the true principle and or the law or the guidance that's in the book. One thing about the writing in the book is it speaks to their end. This is how you know they didn't write it. But they did try to capture it and then put their own narrative on it to hopefully prolong their existence. But their end, it is inevitable. Okay? So we're going to look at the American Negro problem. And in this, I just want you all to understand they know who we are. They understand our stock and where we come from. They know the importance of keeping us oppressed means the longevity within the state or rule of their corruption. They know this, and they've put it in their books. So there's a principle within the biblical writing, Isaiah 28, where it speaks to using a precept upon precept and a line upon line, here a little and there a little. I love this process because not only do I use this process when I'm dealing with American law and court cases and things of that nature, but I'm also able to use it when having these discussions and we're able to go from this book or that book and these writings, and we're able to show principal points, because what they do within certain writings, no different than the puzzle, they'll put a piece here, a piece there, a piece here, and you have to understand how to bring these pieces together in order to convey the message. So we want to talk about the American Negro problem. Now, Negro, they made it up. It's a word that they made the word up. But let's come to understand the prominence of this so-called Negro and why there's so much emphasis on keeping the Negro oppressed. And I'm just going to tell you a little bit. In the Roject Thesaurus of 1834, so in most cases we were in captivity, in this land, dealing with, a harsh sense of servitude in this land during that time. So their writings were basically like amongst themselves, right? But in that 1834 Roject Thesaurus, Negro is synonymous with image of God. Now, that used to be readily available on the internet. I could put it in and boom, it pops up. You try to put it in now, they tell you it doesn't exist, the book doesn't exist. But I have the book. Some of us know of the book. We have the book. But this just goes to show how, they are intentionally looking to misguide and mislead people with respect to who we are. And I'm just going to say, the Negro is an Israelite, a chosen individual of what you call or know to be God. It's just that simple. But some of you would want to argue and say, nope, you're not an Israelite. You're an indigenous. You're an Indian. You're an FBA. You're a native. Okay. But what does that mean within the context of antiquity when we're dealing with these writings as it pertains to the annals? The annals. The heritage of a people. So, for those of you that wish to argue and disassociate yourself, no problem. But when you come to understand the Negro is the head of God's chosen people within the tribe of Judah. Let me just put it that way. So, when we talk about this Negro, or we talk about us as who we call ourselves, black people being God's chosen people, we're not speaking as if we're the only, we're just of that tribe of Judah. There are other constituents as it pertains to the kingdom of God and the righteousness that will be positioned in this earth. But in the writings, it speaks to what and or who they call the Negro being the head and or the leader within this righteousness that will lead the world in righteousness through salvation, meaning the end of oppression. And trust and believe, you all, the colonizer, the oppressor, he knows this. So let's talk about the American Negro problem. You all better share this and repost this, because some of you haven't read these books or you haven't seen these writings, and I want to share some of these resources with you that you may be able to go and find them, on your own, or pick up tidbits off of, what's online. In some places you can find these things. All right. So I'm going to jump right off into it, because as usual, I have a lot of notes that I need to get through, but I just want to assure you that the Negro, he is an Israelite. And even with all the Moors that are out there and they're having their debates or their discussions, the Moor is the Negro, is the Israelite. And you can find that even within these writings when you talk about the Morishite. This is where you have the first instance of the Moor in there. And there's other writings that go to support it. Some are confused when they want to deal with it from the standpoint of the Moabite. They want to deal with it from the standpoint of Ruth, and that's incorrect. They would like to argue that point, but they do so, in ignorance. But I'll get into that on another conversation. Another time I can break out that set of information for you. But when you talk about Moors and you talk about Negroes, these are Israelites. Historically. From what's recorded, and you have those that say, oh, the writings in that book, it's a myth. It's a fable. Only black people think that. Because the rest of the world, and more specifically those that have chose to dominate at this point, they understand the importance of those writings, and they use them to their advantage. So what in the hell is wrong with you? That you don't realize we need to use it to our advantage. Furthermore, it's our story. It's our heritage. The thing that has been stripped away from us. But they use you like useful ID, IOTS. So that you can go around and you can help them within their mission. Yeah, continue to tell them it ain't no good and it's fake and we wrote it. And so they use you as a part of their disinformation, misinformation, their propaganda. But it's okay, because not all of you are part of this correction. But those of you that flow within the vibration and you understand the tonality of what's being expressed, you're making the adjustment. Anyway, let's get into the American Negro problem. And let's look at some of these writings of antiquity and come to see what they were talking about and how they know who the Negro is. And how they've come to realize, let's not let him be called by a name of antiquity, which would be an Israelite, because that would also show to a point of heritage, which again, they stripped from us, which we would have our customs and our traditions within that, no religion. See, without the heritage, they can give us these corrupt religions, Christianity, Catholicism, Judaism, right? But we go to the heritage and that changes things. So they've given us nomenclature, misnomers, pseudonyms, Black, African American, colored, Negro, Indian, FBA, indigenous, aboriginal, indigenous. I mean, we make up all types of stuff. And for some, it sounds good. So anyway, Prophecy 2026, American Negro problems. First of all, we're going to start off with 2 Thessalonians. Thank you all for coming into the live. I'm telling you, share the live, repost the live. Hey, y'all, tap the screen. That part don't cost anything, right? 2 Thessalonians 2 and number 3, he says, let no man deceive you by any means, for that the day shall not come except there come a falling away first. So we're not going to achieve the epitome of righteousness until the coming in of corruption and wickedness just runs rampant. Because in that it will appear to be so dire, so despair. Woe is me, what are we going to do? And for all that have had that doubt and or the question as to what is a God or a creator or, what is the Lord? Those things will be removed beyond a shadow of a doubt, because there was no man in the sense that could do it. Now, I have to qualify man, because as I said, they've given us our gods, our aliens, and our monsters. Our minds have been shaped through their constructs of education and understanding. But when it comes to a man, you have different types. You have a man that is of the terrestrial flesh, and you do have a man that is also of the celestial. We don't know much about the man of the celestial, right? But in the sense of the terrestrial, no man could figure this thing out, could set us on the right course. So there are those of us in the terrestrial that will transfer into the celestial. That's the power of what's written in this book. And they're doing their best to keep it away from the Negroes. Don't let them know this is talking about them. A transformation from the bottom to the top. And if they align themselves with the principles prescribed, then they would overcome our oppression. So yes, let's spend billions and trillions. Hey, we don't care what it costs. Let's spend it so that we can keep them out of the understanding and into our understanding. This is why I say to folks, if they pulled up right now with 2 tractor trailers full with pallets stacked to the top with money from front to back, and they pulled up and they offered these 2 tractor trailers, I would go to the back of the door and I would look for my accelerant and I would look for my igniter. And I'd set both of those tractor trailers aflame. Because there's no amount of money that you can offer me. I know for a number of you that's different. You'll take those 2 trucks and you'll drive off into the sunset. That's just who you are. That's what you represent. But he said, there come a falling away first, meaning we must see this decadence. He says, and that the man of sin be revealed. So we have to come to understand who's responsible for this evil. The man of sin, meaning the one who just refused to go in line with righteousness. He has to be revealed. This is the son of perdition. We got to make an example out of him. He said, who oppose and exalt himself above all that is called God. He opposed what is right. He opposed the Negro, the one who is positioned to rule the earth, the true steward within the family of God's chosen people. He opposed that and he exalt himself above all that is righteous. He says, or that is worshiped, meaning that is served within a proper sense and or understanding of righteousness. So that he is God, the wicked one, the European at this day and time, he's in rule. So that he is God, sit in the temple of God. Now, when they say sit in the temple of God, you all, it's not talking about some church somewhere. He's acting as if he's God in the flesh on earth. And I believe the Pope is one who truly stands, to that in real time. Like that's his position. Like he's, he's the God or the representation of God, on earth, right? Showing himself that he is God. So we want to start with this right here to show that these people have positioned themselves wrongly as the stewards over the earth. And this is why don't nothing work and nothing is functioning like it needs to be. Everything is in decline. As you've heard me say before, all the water is polluted. All the food is polluted. The medicine doesn't work. You got global climate. You got climate change and, all these things within the earth is wrong. Everywhere you turn, there's war, there's violence, there's disease, there's famine. All of this is because they've exalted themselves above all that is right. And they're trying to do this by force, as you've heard them say. It's going to be by strength. And what they've done in acting as if they are the stewards, and or as they've positioned themselves to be the God on earth, they've taken to rename things. That's how we got the name Negro. We didn't give ourselves that name. See, as Adam was the representation, the Son of God on earth, he was given that dominion to give things the name. So they've put themselves in that position as God on earth to then say they have the right to rename, to rewrite. But they do corruption. They do evil. They do perversion. They're not meant to be in that position and or place. Here's a book, The Story of Civilization, Caesar and Christ by Will Durant. Okay? In this book, we find that the Europeans took and created the name Africa. This is one of the instances where they've gone about to rename things as if they are God. See, only God has the right within dominion to name. That was one of the commandments given unto an Adam. And it's handed down to the stewards within the seed and or the sons of God to be done in righteousness. But for them, no. They think they can exalt themselves above the true principle and they can do what they want to do. And again, this is why the world is on fire. This is why the famine and the disease, and every time you turn around, there's more destruction. If you have eyes to see, you see it. But it says the Latins gave the name Africa to the region around Carthage and Utica, and followed the Greeks in calling its Shemitic population Phoni or Phoenicians. See, they started renaming things as they found themselves being in position and or power. So we're not African. They made that up. It's like the Middle East. They made that up. It's like Negro. They made that up. Like Indian. They made that up. But the Latins, they followed the Greeks. This would be the Romans. These are just different classes of today what we call Europeans. Then they were known as Idumeans. They were known as Edomites. They were known as Edom. But today, we call them European. But they started calling the Semitic people different names, such as the Phoenicians, my apologies. And that takes me back to there was a gentleman from Iran on one of the platform discussions that I had, and he explained to me they called themselves Iran because they realized the Greeks gave them the name Persian. They no longer wanted to be identified as Persian. I thought that was a valuable piece of information because I didn't understand why they were calling themselves Iran. But he said they found information that predate the name of the Persians, which they said that came from the Greeks, right? So, but here, this is where we have the Europeans, the Idumeans, right? The Edomites, Esau. This is where we have them acting as if they are the stewards over the earth, as if they are God on earth and they are the ones that are renaming everything. So we're not African. We're not Negro, but that's what we call ourselves. We're not black, but that's what we call ourselves. That's how we're identified today. But these are misnomers, as we're talking today about the American Negro problem. So here, talking about Africa and how the Idumeans provided that name to the region. It says, before the name Africa was used, the entire continent and landmass did not have a single unified original name. Because ancient populations identified by specific kingdoms, ethnic groups, or regions rather than a global continental concept. Different parts of the continent had their own distinct names. So when we say Africa, it tells us in the story of civilization, Caesar and Christ by Will Durant, that the Idumeans, being the Latins following the Greeks, they named Africa to the region. It wasn't over the entire continent. That part came later. It was the region around Carthage and Utica. Then later on, they made it the entire continent. And it's amazing how it's hard to understand that and follow that in this time, because through education, as we've come from preschool to kindergarten on up to the higher learning within education, all we know is the continent of Africa and how they've sectioned it off. This is all a part of their corruption as they seek to position themselves to be God on earth. But they are a corrupt God on earth. So Akibalon, some of you may be familiar with that name. So here, Akibalon is an ancient name widely cited in Afrocentric and Pan-African contexts as original, indigenous name for the continent of Africa before it was colonized. So we're trying to understand what was this landmass before it was colonized, before they came in with the perversion. He says, before it was colonized or named by the Idumeans, the Europeans, the Edomites, right? He said it was frequently translated to mean, talking about Akibalon, mother of mankind, Garden of Eden, land of the blacks, cradle of life. So here's one thing, for certain when you talk about the Idumeans, Esau, the Edomites, Amalek. These are the offspring and things of that nature. Europeans who rule today. They do not want you to know and or understand within, as it said, land of the blacks. They do not want you to know that you were ever in any position of authority and or power. And that historically, they have been under our rule. And when they broke free from that rule to then accentuate the most evil we have ever seen in the earth, they're like, we're not going back into that confinement to where we would be subject to righteousness and or a rule of law as it pertains to a God on earth. They said, we're not doing it. So for that reason, there's a prophecy that speaks to their inevitable end. So, but now, as we talk about the American Negro problem, and we're looking at how these Europeans have come into this time today within their corrupt rulership, they've rewritten history. They scrubbed the internet. I mean, they're still doing this in real time, you all. I'm telling you, a real example is the Rogetosaurus of 1834. It used to be readily available. But once we start pointing out to people that the one that they called the Negro, they also identified him as the image of God. They took it off and said it don't exist. They're continuing to mislead people within the information. They're continuing to position as if they're the ones that should have this right within rulership on the earth. You all, if you can't see, them being in rulership is a problem. The entire world is in conflict under this leadership. The entire world is plunged within decadence, decay, disease. So here, as we talk about the American Negro problems, and the fact that they know that these Negroes in America are of a special breed. And this is why they've identified us as a threat to their national security. Some of you all forgot that. Some of you don't know what I'm talking about. You have to go back to Hoover within the FBI, where he stated, you cannot let these Negroes come together. This is why they do the COINTELPRO, and, to this day, anytime we're coming together, they use their devices within government, you all. The thing you're telling people go and be a part of, the thing that's against our people. They use government to keep us bewildered so that they can stay in control. Oh, I know some of you don't want to hear that. But let's look at the writing from Subcommittee on Constitutional Rights, Committee on Judiciary, United States Senate. This is the Senate 88, the Senate 86 Congress. This was their first session. These were the hearings on the civil rights. This was in 1959, as we talk about this American Negro problems and how they know who you are, but we don't know who we are. And we're running around allowing ourselves to be misled outside of understanding. When we change our behavior, we're able to rise up. Something that simple. It's that simple. But they've made it appear to be so ambiguous. And you all are thinking you need to get money because you want to build black banks. And you want to deal with what y'all call it, where the wealth goes through the family. It escapes me. It'll come to me, here in a second. But you all want this to be centered around money. Joshua 1:8, that tells us about good success. See, there are different types of success here too, you all. But we just think if we get money, then we can do this or we can do that. If you don't understand principle, if you don't understand law, if you don't have a system of things in place, then it's not going to do you any good. So we have to start, as it says, we don't wrestle with flesh and blood. We're wrestling with the principle, the principality. We're wrestling with understanding our behavior, how we're supposed to live our life. What standard of law are we supposed to go by? So they spend every dime on making certain we stay confused. But within these writings, civil rights hearings of 1959, they decided to deal with the writings of someone named John Pepper. That's a pseudonym, right? He's actually some Jewish guy, right? But John Pepper did his writings in the 1920s, centered around the American Negro problems. Now, these writings, the American Negro problem, John Pepper, it's a 16-page pamphlet. You can find this online. I'm suggesting that you read it because a number of you may not know it's available, so that you can hear what they're saying and how they understand who the Negro is and why it's important for them to keep him subdued and oppressed, tied into the game of politics, Democrat, Republican. A different type of religion also, by the way. But this is a 16-page pamphlet dealing with Communist Party position on the Negro question. Okay, here's another word. See, because they use these words like Communist Party, Socialist Party, right? Democratic Party, Republican Party. They use all of this terminology to keep control within their paradigm. So if you're not speaking in line of a Republican or Democrat, then they say, if you're of the Communist Party or the Socialist Party, they say, you're a threat. You're the enemy. And I'm not one that have been big on knowing what the Communist Party, I was a child when all of that was really moving with the Panther Party and all of that. I was just being born. Really didn't have any understanding of what a Communist Party or Socialist Party. And here today, it's being revived within the scope of politics, where they're talking about the socialists and they're reusing the terminology communist. But all of this is to maintain the confusion as they seek to navigate their way in continuing to oppress the Negro. That's their main objective. So it's a 16-page pamphlet dealing with the Communist Party's position on the Negro question in the United States, including a call for a Negro Soviet Republic. Now, this caught my attention. I've never come across any writings where it appeared that someone was actually talking about the liberation of Negroes or black people. Never heard it, never came across it. So for me, just an observation, when I see this thing talking about a communist party or a socialist party, I'm like, well, how is it bad if it's speaking to the liberation of my people? But white folks have said it's bad because it speaks to the liberation of my people. So if it's not Democratic, if it's not the Republican Party or the Democratic Party, they say it's bad. Because the Democratic Party and the Republican Party, they're not going to speak to the liberation of the Negro. Those two parties are in position to make certain the Negro stays oppressed. Oh, I'm not making it up. You're going to find they wrote about this in 1920. You can find this in John Pepper's, in his writings. American Negro Problems. Hopefully you have eyes to see. Anyway, here we go. We're going to read some of it. But a Negro Soviet Republic. So I had to come to understand the word Soviet. It means a council. It means advice. So what's wrong with having a Soviet republic? Because we hear the word Soviet and we think, as they've trained us to think, there's something wrong. Don't be associated with that. But don't expect for the enemy. Don't expect for these Europeans to explain to you how you achieve liberation. Don't look for it. Thank you all for coming into the live. The word Soviet means council or advice. Republic meaning public affairs. This is speaking to our liberation. So here you have a socialist party or a communist party talking about the liberation of the Negro having liberation. The white folks say that's bad, that's wrong. Anyone associated with that should be punished. Turn them to the Democratic Party. Turn them to the Republican Party. Now, I'm not here to promote politics. I'm just trying to show you the dynamics upon which they've used to trick our minds into thinking working within America and all this voting and all this stuff as if you all are moving to some great achievement. It's just the carrot on a stick. You ain't getting nowhere. The Negro has not had power in America. You can count from 1865 to 2025. No power. All this voting y'all doing. Still trying to get something. It's a carrot on a stick. You'll never get there. But when you start talking about a socialist party or a communist party, these things that are centered around the construct or conversation of liberation for our people, you stray away because they've trained us to not look at it. Now, I'm not communist, socialist, Democrat, Republican. I'm looking at the principle. As the creators say, we're not wrestling with flesh and blood. We're dealing with these principles. Now, in the scope of me dealing with these principles, some of you out there may say, oh, you're a conservative. Or, oh, you're this, you're a communist, you're a Republican, you may say those things, but I'm not associated and or affiliated with any of those things. But I'm identifying with some writings from a period of time where there were people in position and or place being identified within a certain umbrella, and this is what they stood for. So I'm saying in my first observation, the Socialist Party and the Communist Party were for the liberation of the Negro. The Democratic Party and the Republican Party, they were against it. But let me just continue and let me show you how they express it. So here we have a republic is a state where power belongs to the people. Do you all think we have a republic right here in the Americas today? If you do, you're a fool. The power is to the corporations, which means we're dealing with a corporatocracy. That's what we're dealing with. Corporatocracy. The corporations are in control today. The inhabitants of the state choose their leaders to enforce rules and laws. That's what you think you have. Within their call for a democracy. You think you're choosing your leaders to enforce laws and rules. I mean, you think if you get enough within their democracy that you're going to have power. It's a trick. It's a trick. And those who know, they should talk about it. They've set it up to where you will never have power within their democracy. They'll let you vote, but they're not going to let you have any power. So here, let's get into the writings of John Pepper. We're going to deal with the foreword. Looking at the American Negro Problems by John Pepper. Here's the foreword. It says, the communists fight for the Negro cause. Now, you got to think about this. When Barack Obama, when Kamala Harris, or anybody else that's running under that Democratic banner, they make certain they announce out loud they ain't going to do nothing for the Negro. Y'all know what I'm talking about? Within the Democratic Party, they made certain they announced they're not going to do anything for the Negro. They dance around the black. That's right. They said blacks. That's the terminology. They're not going to do anything specifically to help black people. That's the underlying writing of these two parties. Let's look at what's written, though, how it's portrayed from the 1920s. The communists fight for the Negro cause. Now, once again, if this is fighting for the liberation of my people, then I have to look a little closer. I have to scrutinize it a little bit more. Because you've had people to be successful within the idea of what they call or are identifying as socialists and or communists. They were successful. Maurice Bishop of Grenada. 1979. He was successful. Healthcare for his people. Education on the rise. unemployment blossoming. What happened? The U.S., Ronald Reagan, they went to war to shut it down. Cannot have the Negroes thriving. Cannot allow for the concept of a socialist and or communist to be shown and or seen as successful. And especially if it's promoting the liberation of Black people. So they moved in and they shut it down and they demonized it and villainized it and made you feel as if only criminals deal with and or talk about the Communist Party or the Socialist Party. Well, I'm just telling you, I'm going to say criminals deal with the Republican Party and the Democratic Party. That's my observation. All my life, that's all I've known are the criminal acts between these two parties, the lies and the deception between or dealing with this government. And they've said socialism and communism is bad. So here's one thing I know about this devil. If they say it's bad, I need to look at it to see, well, why they say it's bad. And just on its face, I've not done a deep dive. I don't care about the standpoint of the Communist Party or the Socialist Party because I'm dealing with the heritage and or the laws of our God and or Creator. That's the party. The party is righteousness. We don't wrestle with flesh and blood. We're fighting and or wrestling with these principles. But I just want you to understand how something of a communist party or a socialist party was being used at one point in time to deal with the Negro and uplifting him and or positioning him to have his liberation, his own republic. And this is why when we created our 36 blocks with hospitals and banks and all of these things, that they came in and looted and burned, robbed, bombed our cities. The Rosewood, the Greenwoods, and you know all the woods that they set ablaze. And still to this day, they deny it as if it ever happened. They try to make you feel as if it's a trivial thing. But all of this is about keeping us under or within their rule, keeping us oppressed. And you all think the state of the government today within the Republican and Democratic Party are going to give you some reprieve. Fools. Well, let's read the foreword. John Pepper's American Negro Problem, the communist fight for the Negro cause. It starts out, the two major capitalist parties, the Republican and Democrat, and their small brother, the Socialist Party. So here's one thing interesting I saw in this writing. Whenever they wanted to further villainize the Socialist Party, they quickly called it the Communist Party. They flipped that, back and forth, however they felt, the need, right? He said, and their small brother, the Socialist Party, have an unwritten gentleman's agreement. 1920, you all, they wrote this. On the Negro question. So in the 20s, there was a gentleman agreement on the Negro question between a Socialist Party, Republican Party, and a Democratic Party. And you all are trying to act as if that agreement doesn't still stand to this day. It says, according to the sacred gentleman's agreement, which no capitalist politician has dared to violate in the present election campaign. That's what I'm talking about as it pertains to like Barack Obama or a Kamala Harris. From the standpoint of the Democratic and or Republican Party, they're not going to violate that gentleman's agreement. They're not going to talk about helping the Negro, right? Dare to violate the present election campaign. There is no Negro question in the United States. Meaning, they're not going to talk about the issue of the Negroes within their political party. There is no Negro question in the United States. There is no problems of social and political equality. They're not going to deal with that within the Republican Party or the Democratic Party. That's a part of the gentleman's agreement. Y'all better wake up. Within the gentleman's agreement, okay? There are no problems of social and political equality. No question of discrimination against the Negro masses. In other words, within politics, they're not there to talk about the issues of the Negroes, of the blacks. But yet, you all think you can go out and vote and you're going to bring about some change. They have a long-standing agreement, you all. And they deal within their inner circles to make certain that whomever they put in these positions and or these places, that this is kind of what they stand for. This is why Barack said it. And this is why Kamala Harris states. And this is why those who get on the campaign, they ain't going to talk to you about the issues impounding and or affecting black communities. Because they say there is no problem. It said during the whole course of the election campaign, there has been only one political party which has had the courage to violate this gentleman's agreement. Which party do you think it was? Real quick, type in the chat. Which party do you think violated the gentleman's agreement? You can type it in real quick. I'm going to give you a chance to type it in real quick. Oh, somebody said, let's see. Okay. All right. So here, he said there was only one party that had the courage to violate the gentleman's agreement. Someone says the Dems, right? It says to violate this gentleman's agreement to keep the deathly silence on the Negro question. So you had the Democratic Party, you have the Republican Party, and you have their little brother, the Socialist Party. One of them violated the gentleman's agreement and started to speak about the Negro question. It wasn't the Dems. It wasn't the Repubs, you all. It was the Socialists. That's why the Democratic Party and or the Republican Party called them the villain, because they went against the gentleman's agreement. Anytime you start talking about the socialists, or what they would also tie into, call it the communists, they say those are the villains, those are the criminals. The Workers Party, okay, now they've deemed the Workers Party communist. See, this is the oppressor talking. This is how he's identified it. If you are with the Workers' Party, then you're a communist. If you're about trying to liberate the Negroes, the black folks, you're a communist. So here he says the Workers' Party of America has come out in its election platform and in its whole election struggle as the fearless champions of the Negro masses. That was the problem. The Socialist Party stood up for the Negro masses. This is why still to this day, when you start talking about a socialist, they'll call them communists and villainize them because the principles or the tenets centered around this party, they broke the gentleman's agreement. And they started to stand up for the Negro masses. This was written in 1920. He said the southern states are stirred up by the political struggle of the communist speakers and organizers for the Negro masses. Still to this day, anytime you start speaking about the Negro question or the problems the Negroes have in America, there's someone that wants to come along and demonize the discussion. It violates the gentleman's agreement. We're not going to talk about this across party lines. He says, communist anti-lynching leaflets are being distributed everywhere. This was back, in the talking about what happened in the early 1900s, okay? The candidates of the Communist Party are everywhere putting up a courageous fight for the full social and political equality of the Negro race. Who's doing that today? Who's putting up a fight for the social and political equality of the Negro race? And if you're talking about a political and social equality, what you're saying is there's a sense of liberation to where we get to look at who we go into contract with for commerce. That's what that's talking about. We get to function as a nation of people. We get to deal with our destiny. Oh, they don't want to talk about that. They say it's criminal when you start talking about Negroes having power, being a separate party or dealing in liberation. They say that's a communist. That's a socialist. And a number of you, y'all still falling for it. The meeting of the Communist Party, we're reading from American Negro Problems, 1920, by John Pepper. You can pull this up on the internet. This is the foreword. The meeting of the Communist Party have been broken up in Arizona, in Texas, Delaware, and in other southern states because the communist spokesman dared to tackle the Negro question. The Negro question, which looks at the problems of inequality, injustice. And because they dealt with those things, they were arrested. Same thing happened today. When you get deep off into it, you get jailed. Same thing happening today. This administration that's out here today, it's still weaponized in order to deal with who they don't like. Okay? Who dared to tackle the Negro question and were bold enough to call the Negro workers to their meetings. So here you have a separate party that wants to allow the Negroes or the blacks to understand the necessity to be independent. And for that, they were jailed. So here it says, looking at the Ku Klux Klan, the American Legion. How many of y'all know about the American Legion? The Ku Klux Klan, the American Legion, the forces of police, and other organs of governmental terrorism are mobilized. These aren't my words. I'm reading what was written in the 1920s. Still happening to this very day, but you all won't call it terrorism from the government. They've made you soften it up. When you see law enforcement out here doing what they're doing to our people, you all have softened it up. In fact, you're just numb. But they've been doing this under the guise of the Republican Party and the Democratic Party. And any party that stands to speak against it, they're considered enemies. They're considered socialists. They're considered communists. Why y'all keep falling for the okie doke? He says, the Ku Klux Klan, the American Legion, the forces of the police and other organs of governmental terrorism are mobilized everywhere against the communists. In other words, against the Negroes and their call for liberation, independence. They used the government forces then to shut down the call for our independence, no different than they use it today in the name of their politics. They dress it up and they make it, look real sweet, and they pay some of you good money. And for that, you think it's a good thing. You feel like, oh, you can get in there, and just if you can get in, you can work from the inside. Stop lying to yourself. How many people before you do you think had that idea and came out with their tail tucked in between their legs and realized you can't do nothing? He said, the organs of governmental terrorism are mobilized everywhere against the communists because the Communist Party is the only party of the working class and of the oppressed Negro masses. Some of you feel because you got a little money, you're not oppressed. But if your people are oppressed, trust and believe, you're oppressed. In Psalms 83:4, when you talk about these Europeans, this Democratic, this Republican Party and this Democratic Party, when you talk about this, they've said the Negro must stay oppressed. That's a part of the gentleman's agreement. Don't talk about the Negro issues. Psalms 83:4, it says, they have said, come, let us cut them off from being a nation. Who you think they're talking about? They want to cut us off from being a nation. They don't want anyone to understand and or know we are a people. They say that the name of Israel may be no more in remembrance. This is what I'm telling you. We're not Negro. We're not black. We're not African American. We are Israel. Don't get it twisted and or confused with the imposters and or the corruption that a Netanyahu and or a state of Israel has purported within the world today. It ain't got nothing to do with that. That's a part of the corruption. That's a part of heritage hijacking. Oh, they do that very well. One day they're Indian, another day they're Jewish, another day, they're Australian, they just become. But they want to cut them off from being a nation. That's a part of their gentleman's agreement. But someone within something called a socialist party broke away from that agreement and started trying to do things to assist a Negro population in maintaining their independence. And like I said, when you go back to a 1979 and you think about a man named Maurice Bishop who was excelling within the concept of a socialist party, the democracy or the government of the United States went in with their might and force and shut it down. Hosea 4:1. He says, hear the word of the Lord. And we're going to get back to the writings of John Pepper and the American Negro Problems. We're going to get back to that. I just wanted to tie a couple of verses into what we've read. More importantly, they have agreed they need to cut us off from being a nation. Hosea 4:1, he says, hear the word of the Lord, ye children of Israel. See, we don't understand. These writings are talking to us as the children of Israel. We want to be called Black, African American, FBA, Indigenous, Aboriginal, Pan-African. We want to be called all these things. But we are Israel, the most powerful name in the world. Why? Because it's a name that the Creator specifically gave to a people as his people to rule within righteousness in this earth. And the Negro is at the head of that congregation under the banner of Judah. And this is why the Europeans moved in so swiftly to call themselves Jewish and to establish a state of Israel. But they're not the people. They're not who these writings are talking about, because all the things that they're doing and all the things that they have done, it doesn't line up with what's written. We might get to that. I might be able to get to it if I have time enough. Hear the words of the Lord, ye children of Israel. For the Lord have a controversy with the inhabitants of the land. He has a problem with us because we will not be obedient to our heritage. We're continuing to want to be like the other nations and other people. And for that, we suffer. But he has a controversy with the inhabitants of the land, because when we act like them and be like them, then we're perverted like them. And you all think the issue is around money, building black banks, and generational wealth. That's the word I couldn't think of. Generational wealth. You all think you can just get this money, and if you can get this money, you can do generational wealth, and that's going to fix our problems. Our issue is not money. We have a gift of being able to get money, do money, be money. We have a gift at that. Our issue is with the understanding of how we conduct and govern ourselves. The inhabitants of the land, it said, because there's no truth in the land, no mercy in the land, nor knowledge of God in the land. Now, when it's talking about knowledge of God in the land, you all, it's not talking about a white Jesus. It's not talking about Christianity, Catholicism, and or Judaism. The knowledge of God is centered around that thing you've heard me talking about for weeks in and weeks out, talking about righteousness. The principles centered around what it means to be upright. A body of laws, a body of standards to be governed by. We don't have no understanding of that. We're looking at their policies, their procedures, and the things that they've put in position to operate from, and we think that's how it's supposed to go. So for that, the Lord has a controversy. Righteousness has a controversy with us, because those things are corrupt. He said, by swearing, lying, and killing, and stealing, and committing adultery, these are all the corrupt things that we're doing or following after under their leadership. And you all think you just need to build black banks and generational wealth. Well, if you're still lying and stealing and dealing in fornication and adultery, then we've failed. We don't wrestle with flesh and blood. We're struggling with understanding these principles. How to live as the kings and queens we say we are. Committing adultery. They break out and blood touch blood, meaning there's just too much one taking the life of the other. This is what we're plagued with. And this is why there's a controversy against us, the Negro, as we talk about the American Negro problem. Now let's get back to the writings of Mr. Pepper in 1920. The American Negro problems. He says one, if not the most outstanding feature of the election campaign of 1928 is the fact that communist speakers, organizers, and candidates for president, vice president, and governor are being jailed everywhere because of their uncompromising struggle for the Negroes. Still to this day, you all, that's the threat. If you get too headstrong within coming up with scenarios to resurrect the Negro or allow the Negro to understand his position within liberation, you'll be jailed. So for a number of people, they back up once they find out jail time is involved. They like, oh no, they locking folks up. And see, they know you're afraid of that, so they continue to threaten you with that. But it's not new. They've been doing it. And you all think today that there's some difference within a Democratic and or Republican Party. Same beast then, same beast now. It's just different faces and or people are in those positions. But that gentleman's agreement is still there. You go down, it says, the Negro question in America must be treated in its relation to the liberation struggle of the proletariat. I had to look that word up. The proletariat. Real quick, so let's go. The proletariat is the social class of wage earner who do not own the means of production and must sell their labor power to survive. Y'all, I never knew what a proletariat was, but each and every one of us fall to that understanding because we have to sell our labor to survive. It's still happening to this day, but this conversation is not being had in depth that we can even scrutinize it to that point that we can come to understand we have to change these dynamics. And dealing with the Republican and or a Democratic Party, they're no help to us. They are the cause of our injury, continued injury. This is where the upholding of imperialism, capitalism, these things live within the state of their Republican Party, Democratic Party, maintaining European superiority, maintaining colonization, maintaining the oppression of our people right here in America. Land of the free, home of the brave, and the oppressed, Negro, still a slave. He says, so that's what a proletariat is. Someone that has to sell their labor power to survive. Okay? The struggle against white oppression of the Negro masses is a part of the proletarian revolution in America against capitalism. So we're trying to understand how to get out of the rat race to where we have to keep selling our ability to work to survive to where we're not tied into capitalism, which is continuing to make them richer. As you all think you want to build black banks and have generational wealth, we need to analyze how capitalism is a part of our detriment. Oh, we don't want to have these conversations because it goes against everything. As you all are preparing, a number of you, to get out and go vote. It says the American working class cannot free itself from capitalist exploitation without freeing the Negro race from white oppression. This was written in the 20s, 1920. But the concept still remains to this day, you all. To this day. You have some folks that feel as if oppression doesn't exist, but it's happening to us in real time. Thank you all for coming into the live. You all tap the screen. That part doesn't cost anything. Share the live and repost the live. So here, he says, at the same time, the Negro question in the United States of America must be treated in its relation to the huge Negro masses of workers oppressed and exploited by white imperialism. All of this is coming through your Democratic Party, through your Republican Party, because they're under the gentleman's agreement. You got to keep the Negro oppressed at all costs. So they'll let some of you become a part of their parties, but they make certain that you stay within line according to the agreement, even if you don't even know the agreement is there. But if you go outside of that agreement, they have a way of making certain that they set you up. And you find yourself in prison somewhere, somehow, some way. If you're not going to play in accordance to their rules and their structures, and you think you're going to go in their house and take over, they have a way of setting you down. Something weird happens to you, you might come up missing, or you go to jail. So the workers oppressed and exploited by white imperialism in Africa and South America. Because the Negro, you all, he's everywhere. scattered abroad. The writings say we're scattered abroad throughout the four corners of the earth. You got Negroes in Palestine. You got Negroes in Pakistan, Afghanistan, Iran, Iraq, the Philippines, China, Japan. The Negroes are everywhere. He said the Negroes of the United States are the most advanced. I ain't write this. I'm reading to you what was written in the 1920s as they were observing even more the need to keep us oppressed. As I'm telling you, they know we are the children of Israel. They know that we are Judah. They know that we are Israel. But to throw you off, they say, call him black. Let him call himself colored. These are bywords. Call him a Negro. African American. Let him call himself anything other than by a name of nationality. He said the Negroes of the United States are the most advanced section of the Negro population of the world. They know who we are over here in America. Excuse me one second. They know who we are. The most advanced. He says, the Negroes of the United States are the most advanced section of the Negro population of the world and can play a decisive role in helping and leading the liberation movement of the Negro colonies. I'm telling you, we've been selling ourselves short, continuing to try and work with these people. They know who we are. Just a majority of us don't know who we are because we're chasing money or some other vain idea of what we think life is, when our aim and or our goal should be about our liberation. And they understand we are the stewards of leadership within righteousness in this world that will bring the rest of the Negro population or the Israelites around the world that have been scattered. This is how you know a Netanyahu in the state of Israel is fake. They ain't bringing nothing together. They're destroying everything. They're in conflict with everything. Can play a decisive role in helping and leading the liberation. Not talking about being integrated and working with. This is the liberation of our people. And that's what you've heard me talk about day in and day out. As you all are saying, vote, I continue to say, vote for liberation. Right? The liberation movement of the Negro colonies. Within the Negro population of the United States, the Negro working class is destined to be the vanguard of all liberation movements and may become the vanguard of the liberation movement of the Negro peasant masses on an international scale. This is why the government, even within the FBI, they say the Negroes are a threat. If you let them come together, they say it's a threat to the national security. So our liberation is a threat to national security, and a number of you don't see a problem with that. That they've identified us as the enemy. And we're trying to go along with them as if they didn't just say what they said, and as if they're not doing what they're doing. So I told you about the Rojectosaurus. I just mentioned about the statement within the FBI or within the government itself, still being an organ of governmental terrorism against our people. I'm just reiterating what was written within John Pepper's writings from the 1920s, that governmental organs are being used as instruments of terrorism against Negroes. Still to this day, it's happening. Still to this day, the FBI, no one, they haven't denounced Hoover for making those statements. They haven't come out and said it's wrong and giving some sense of recompense for what they've done. They're still continuing to function as if everything's good. The government is against the liberation of African Americans, of Negroes, of black people, period. So you can go and damn vote all you want. All you're doing is supporting imperialism. You're supporting the oppression of your people. The Negroes are disenfranchised politically. Continuing to read from John Pepper's writings from 1920, American Negro Problems. The Negroes are disenfranchised politically. Sheer force prevents the Negroes from exercising their so-called political rights. Sheer force. This is what's preventing the Negroes from exercising their so-called political rights. Then it was happening, now it's still happening. Because if you want to exercise a political right to stand within your reclaiming autonomy and or dealing with self-determination, you become villainized. You might become a political prisoner. You might find yourself missing. Something weird happens to you. And some find it like really hard to believe that in the 80s, where all of the munitions just show up in crates in different urban areas and a substance, a substance like just rocks, they just show up. As if none of this is like by design, intentionally being done to us as a people, and you all want to keep acting as if it's not happening. Here we say, he says, lynch law is the law over the Negroes. Then that's how they dealt with it. We were threatened with the concept of being lynched. Today, like I said, it's just straight jail time. That's what you would be threatened with. Then it was the terror of the Ku Klux Klan. They say that was the Constitution for the Negroes. That's how they dealt with us. Y'all running around here thinking we the people and, all men are created equal and the Constitution. The Republican Party, the Democratic Party, they said, the Ku Klux Klan, they said that was the Constitution for the Negroes. I didn't write it. I didn't create it. And some of you want to act as if the Republican Party is the party for black people. It's a trick. It's a trick. And those who know should talk about it. The Republican Party is also a part of the gentleman's agreement. They're not going to deal with the truth within the liberation of our people. So here it says, the Negro question in the United States must be treated in its relation to the general international Negro problem. But they've identified we're the most advanced. He said the question of a Negro World Congress should be considered, but, I'm going to go here and then I might have to go to another writing from Ernest Haig, the Jewish mystique, where in that writing, he expressed, we've been trained to feel as if we can't be successful unless we're associated with our oppressor. And in observation, it appears to be true. But let me finish this one right here. Because the question of a Negro World Congress, still talking about the liberation of our people. Now, it's weird because in the 20s, they were having conversations. At least they were having the conversations about the liberation of our people. Now today, but a Negro World Congress was at least a consideration. But now look at this. Should be considered, but it can be realized only if the Negro working class leadership in Congress can be secured. That's the trick right there. They feel as if we need to be under them in order to have a World Congress. But this is what they did. They gave you a black caucus. That's supposed to be the representation that would deal with the concept of a Negro Congress, the black caucus. So they set it up, they run it, they control it. That's why a black caucus, it ain't nothing. It's garbage. That's their invention. They felt as if they couldn't afford to let us do it within our own merit, so they wanted to set it up and say, if you want a Negro Congress, then it needs to be held and or under our leadership, we'll give you a caucus. So now I got to go to the Jewish mystique. Now I got to go to that one. So here, and then I may come back because this on page 60, you all, these are some dynamic writings that these Europeans put out in a time to explain who we are and how they're afraid of us coming into power because it would diminish and or put them in a position to have to follow our leadership. He says, Negroes did not feel, this is one part, and then it'll get to the part, but when you talk about the so-called Jewish people and how they want to deny that we have anything to do with being God's chosen people. Like they just want you to think, oh, we just black. See, in the Bible, they talk about God's people having an issue because they refuse to follow his law. So now look at this book, The Jewish Mystic, written by Ernest Haig. This is what he said. Negroes did not feel that a code of conduct prescribed by their heritage, he used the word religion, would lead to redemption, independently of the wishes of the white majority. He says they did not feel that their suffering were a chastisement imposed by a father who had been disobeyed. And the ultimate redemption would depend on their studying and obeying his law. Now, if this so-called Jewish man didn't know that we were of the people, why is he speaking to the point that we need to be obeying the laws of the Creator? And this is the reason why we're in the hardship that we're in, because we don't realize we're that people. This is what he just said. Put it in your face. But a number of you ain't never seen this. You ain't never heard it. You wouldn't even know where to place it or how to put it. But because we deal with this like precept upon precept, line upon line, it's like we can go and we can pull out these different parts and show how it's relative and show how they know who we are, y'all. They know what we're capable of. Now, back to this part of being needing to have the association to white folks in order to be successful. Still in this book, The Jewish Mystique by Ernest Haig. He says, unlike the Jews, he said, they tend to feel that their fate depends on outside secular forces, on the behavior of the white majority. So when you talk about a Negro Congress, they're saying it's only going to be successful if you do it under our leadership. And you have a number of us that have been trained to feel as if that's so. But they're writing about this psychological flaw. They see it. But who is coming and explaining these things to us and saying, that's a mistake? It's a mistake for you to have a caucus in their Congress thinking you're going to have a degree of independence and or you're going to be able to lead your people to some salvation or out of oppression. He says, thus, they are led to pull or push that majority into helping them, talking about the white folks, the Europeans. We fight to get them to help us. As we have a black caucus in Congress thinking that's who we run to. They sold out a long time ago. They sold out the moment it was created. He says, helping them and into repairing the damage done. This is what Haig said, which further weakens their own initiative and independence. This is how they write it. They understand and know as long as we're under their banner, it weakens our initiative and our independence. There's more within that I'd like to get to, but I want to continue. I want to go back to what we were looking at within John Pepper's writing, The Negro American Problem. Thank you all for coming into the live. Where he said the question of the Negro World Congress should be considered, but it can be realized only if the Negro working class leadership if a Negro working class leadership in Congress can be secured. So when we set this thing up in Congress, as Haig said within the Jewish Mystique, it weakens our initiative and our need for independence. But you have those that feel that's the way to go. Let the white folks help. He says, one aim and purpose of the work among the Negroes in the USA should be to organize them as the champions of the Negroes all over the world against imperialism. This is why they say we're the enemy. Because once we establish ourselves and we're thriving, they say we're now in conflict, or we're overshadowing what they call capitalism and or the imperialism. And we're looking to free the rest of the Negroes around the world. They said, can't have that. He said, a strong Negro movement in the USA will be able to influence and direct the Negro movement in all of those backward parts of the world where the Negroes are oppressed by the various imperialist powers. They know who we are, you all. They know. So they've labeled us the enemy. And they will not use their governmental arm to help us flourish. They will only oppress us even more and make it even more difficult. It doesn't matter which party you're affiliated with. They understand helping us would bring an end to their rule. They're not going to do it. So what do? Oppress them more. And they allow a number of you to get close to them and make money off of them. And they use you to hopefully come back into our communities and hope that you can convince us to be okay with being oppressed. So here's something from the American Economic Association. And it says, in view of these facts, it is probable that the Negro stock landed in America was physically superior. I didn't write this. This is them talking amongst themselves. I'm only trying to show you they know who we are. We don't know who we are, running around calling ourselves Black, African American, Negro, colored, indigenous, aboriginal, FBA. They know we are Israel. They know we are the Israelite, but they put the misnomer over the heritage to disguise it, to hide it. Black has no affiliation and or association with an Israelite. Negro has no affiliation and or association to anything. But it's one of the most prominent nomenclatures used and or placed upon a particular people, not like everybody else. So within the code of their conduct, within dog whistle terminology, they know who the Negro is. He says, the Negro stock landed in America was physically superior to the average of that left behind. No doubt, many were permanently broken in health, but it could have been so with any large proportion, or the trade could not have flourished as it did. It is probable that the great majority, being by nature the soundest and the strongest, quickly recovered and transmitted to their offspring their congenital qualities. I'm only telling you. They have these writings hidden, tucked away. They know who we are, and they're not going to allow the arm of government that they've created to assist us. So you look at Genesis 49 and number 8, he says Judah, because that's who we are. We're of God's chosen. That Negro is of God's chosen people. That Negro, he is an Israelite of the tribe of Judah, the head, the leader. So the white folks, the Europeans know this about that Negro, so they say we have to do everything we can to prevent them from becoming sound champions. Every time they build something, they say, we're going to destroy it. We're going to find a reason to say we have to go in and something criminal is happening. Historically, this continues to happen. It's still happening to this very day. Judah, thou art whom thy brethren shall praise. Some of y'all mad because I know as Negroes, we've done some infamous things. We look like can't get right. But the children of the Creator will be cleaned up. We'll be brought to the point and position to where we will be able to lead appropriately. It don't look like it now, I know. We look like the bad news bears out there right now. I get it. He said, but Judah, thou art whom thy brethren shall praise. Talking about who they call the Negro. He said, thy hand shall be in the neck of thine enemies. So right now, the enemies, they have their hand on our neck. But when we stand to power, then our hand is going to be on their neck. Oh, do you think within the Republican Party or the Democratic Party, they want to allow that? This is why they have the gentleman's agreement. Keep the Negro oppressed. Anybody talking about the liberation of this people, call them a communist. Call them a socialist. Use the arm and force of government to destroy them. Go on media and create an outlandish story and make people believe it. They're criminal. He said, thy hand shall be on the neck of thine enemies. He says, thy father's children shall bow down before thee. Some of y'all pissed off because the Negro is chosen by God to lead the children of God. And right now we look like the worst thing on earth. Me no black, me no black, me no black. Everybody. Nobody wants to be black. Nobody wants to be Negro. Cool. No problem. Because you can't be. Number 10, it said, the scepter shall not depart from Judah. The Negroes are going to lead in the kingdom of heaven. The Negroes, the kingdom of heaven meaning the earth. Right now, the white folks are ruling in the kingdom of heaven. They're just tearing it down. They've turned the kingdom of heaven into a ghetto. They're destroying everything. But the scepter shall not depart from Judah, who's also known as the Negro, who's also, according to the Rosette Thesaurus of 1834, is the image of God. The Rosette Thesaurus of 1834, the Negro is synonymous with the image of God. And I told you, They hide it now and act as if the book don't exist. But I got the book. He says, the scepter should not depart from Judah, nor a lawgiver from between his feet until Shiloh come. And unto him shall the gathering of the people be. This is how you know a Netanyahu in the state of Israel is fake. The gathering of the people, it has not happened. And it cannot happen as long as we are being oppressed. There's no gathering of the people in no state of Israel as it exists today. That's a mockery. Deuteronomy 33:7, he says, and this is the blessing of Judah. And he said, hear, Lord, the voice of Judah, who they call the Negro, and bring unto him his people. Where is this happening in a state of Israel to where the people of the kingdom of Israel is flocking? It's not happening. For some of you, you're not understanding. This is the problem. All the things that they boast within their success, these biblical writings speak against and or say, according to God's chosen people, those things will not be available until the end of oppression, until the son of perdition is revealed. But yet they boast of how they were able to maintain their heritage and they were able to do this and do that. The writings say those things will not happen and the heritage would not be. But a number of us, we don't get that deep with it. Hear, O Lord, the voice of Judah, and bring him unto his people. Let his hands be sufficient for him. Netanyahu and them over there, their hands are not sufficient. They struggling, causing more conflict, more harm, more pain, more destruction, more confusion. Let his hands be sufficient for him, and be thou in help to him from his enemies. They don't have help from no Lord. Their help is coming from the United States military. Is that who you call the Lord, according to these writings? I think for this, I do want to go. Now I got time. I do want to go now back to The Jewish Mystic by Ernest Haig. I want to read that now, right? Going off a little bit. Let me give it to you like this. Let me start off. The Jewish Mystic by Ernest Haig. I want you to hear what these people say. This is a book written by a European who calls himself Jewish or Jew. They hijack the heritage. That's what they do. He says, let's see. Yeah. Unlike the Negroes, the Jews could fall back on their past history. See, in the Bible, it doesn't speak about the Jews being able to fall back on a past history. It speaks about those things being hidden until the appointed time. But let's look at how they boast and they show that they are of the son of perdition, that they are to be revealed also as the men of sin. He says, unlike the Negroes, the Jews could fall back on their past history, recorded in the Bible and universally respected and accepted. This is the part I'm talking about, where they got a number of you running around trying to act as if something wrong with the writings, but they understand that it's accepted and respected. The only thing is they're portraying and or acting as if they're you, me. They've hijacked our heritage. They know these writings are accepted and respected, but don't let you claim it. Let them claim it. And let you run around and talk about it's the white man's book. But I get the fact Christianity, Catholicism, and even Judaism, these are all things that are not real. These are all things that are a part of the oppression. They have nothing to do with the pristineness of the heritage, though. But to keep the Negro oppressed and away from his heritage, then they turn our attention to other things. But let's just keep reading at what he says. He says, those who survived in the diaspora never were enslaved. In the writing we just got finished seeing, where he said he has a controversy with us. But they say they've not been impacted, by this, right? He said they were denied the rights others had, and they were denied the rights others had and deprived. He said, but with all that, they were permitted to live their own lives, or their own style. These things go against the biblical context that speaks to the controversy that's being held against the people. He says, and again, unlike the Negro, in the dispersal, Jews were able to form harmonious communities. The writings explain we would be oppressed under the hand of the heathen or the other nations until the time of the gathering. Oh, but look at how they boast. They were able to form harmonious communities. It said bound together by their own history, language, literature, and religion, and governed in international affairs by their own political, social, and religious leaders. All of this is outside of what's written. But a number of you, you're not aware of it. You don't focus on prophecy. You don't deal with the heritage of the people. Now look at what he said. Negroes lack all of these intangible but immensely important advantages. This is a sign that the Negro are of the true children of God and or from the tribe of Judah. Because Judah would be oppressed. The Negro is still being oppressed. He said they did not share a common language, religion, history, religion meaning heritage, history, or culture. They had no literature, no record of their own past. All of this fits in with the prophecy that said the children of God would not have the record But miraculously, they got it. He said, no literature, no record of their past, no laws, no leaders, and no community. He says tribes did have at least some of these common bonds, but enslavement destroyed the tribal units. Enslavement destroyed the tribal units, and the Negroes kept on the plantation could communicate with each other only in English. Even their heritage, the book says religion, even their heritage, the self-image, and their ambitions were those handed to them by their oppressors. So I get it when you all talk about Christianity, because they gave us that. It has nothing to do with our true heritage. Although our true heritage is written in the book that they turn around and hand it to us, but we could only deal with it in English. We couldn't deal with it in the standpoint of our understanding or our culture or our heritage. They had to re-educate us, per se. It doesn't say something's wrong with the writings, it's something wrong with the delivery. If we get away from the delivery and come back to look at these writings within the pure sense of what it is, we can be realigned. They understand this about us, and they do everything they can to make certain we stay off course. He says, even their religion, their self-image, okay, these were things that were handed to them by the oppressor. They are in a difficult situation of not being accepted by the only society they know of, wishing to reject it in retaliation, and of having no society of their own, no culture, no usable past to turn to. Now look at this. He says, university studies and institutes cannot manufacture history and culture. So all of this black history and all this stuff y'all talking about, it's like they understand all this stuff is just manufactured, but it's not rooted within the antiquity of a long-standing people. So keep calling yourself African American, Black, and Indian, and Aboriginal, and all this other stuff. Just don't call yourself an Israelite from the tribe of Judah, called and destined to rule the world in righteousness. Call yourself anything but that. He says, and the condition which surrounded their life in America from the beginning hindered the development of those values, ambitions, and aptitude which would have procured them a reasonable place in American society. So here again, they're telling you, if you focus on your independence, separate from them, you can be functional within society. But as long as you feel like you need to be associated to their democracy, a part of their party as a Republican or a Democrat, then you're going to suffer. Here he says, this book right here is called The Jewish Mystique. It's by Ernest Haig. I'm reading off page 60. He says, in contrast, the Jews were conditioned by their past to develop those values, skills, ambitions, and talents, which turned out to be most conducive to success in the industry, in the industrial businesses and scholarly groups which dominate America. Now, the funny thing is they deny having any dominance within any industry. But yet they'll boast about it in one breath, they'll deny it in another breath. And furthermore, when they sit up and say that they flourish within these skills, within the writings, because we're oppressed, those who rule over us, they take advantage of our ability and those skills. And some of you know what I'm talking about, as we have invented some very powerful and or phenomenal things. But who gets the credit for it? But they miraculously have risen above what the writing and or prophecy state as to who the children of God is, what they would go through until a certain and or specific time. This is how you know, if you're scrutinizing what's written, that they're not the people, that they've hijacked another heritage. So he says, Negroes did not feel that a code of conduct, this is what I read earlier, Negroes did not feel that a code of conduct prescribed by their heritage would lead to redemption. See, this is what I'm saying. They know we're the people because now he's telling you we're the people. Listen to what he say. It's abstract the way he put it, but look at how this one man being considered a Jew is pointing out that the Negro is the Jew. Look at what he says. Because if he were not considering the Negro being the Jew, he would have never associated him with following the laws, the statutes, and the commandments centered around the Father. Look at it. Negroes did not feel that a code of conduct prescribed by their heritage would lead to redemption, independently of the wishes of the white majority. They did not feel that their sufferings were a chastisement. See, the Israelites, their suffering was centered around a chastisement imposed by a father who had been disobeyed. That's the fight or the plight of the Israelite. Because we disobeyed our Creator, then we were punished. But the way to recover from that punishment is to get back into obedience. He says they did not feel that their sufferings were a chastisement imposed by a father who had been disobeyed, and the ultimate redemption would depend on their studying and obeying his law. Why would he say that? If he did not know that we are that people. He just spelled it out. But that went over a number of individuals. It went over their head, even at that time. But we're now at a time that we can maneuver precept upon precept, here a little, there a little, and grab a piece from here and a piece from there, and explain these stories and connect these writings to show they're having a consistent conversation out in the open, but in code. It's going over our head because we think we just black. But they know our suffering is because we're disobedient to the laws, the standards, the statutes that are centered around us being successful. And y'all want to get money to build black banks and generational wealth as if that's going to be the answer. Jacob's trouble, it lie within disobedience. We don't wrestle with flesh and blood. Our issue is with the principle We need to raise our standards within our ethic and within our morals. He says, unlike the Jews, they tend to feel that their fate depends on outside secular forces, on the behavior of the white majority. This is how most black folks, Negroes, African Americans, this is how most folks feel. We must be associated with the white majority in order to be successful. That's why y'all want to get some money. Y'all want to get the paper with the pictures of the oppressors on it. And you think that's going to take you into salvation. It's sad, but that's what's happening. Outside secular forces on the behavior of the white majority. Then he says, thus, they are led to pull and push that majority into helping them. Oh, we feel like we need the white folks to help us this way or that way. We can't damn keep them out of our business. We need the white man in order for us to be successful. We got to be a part of their democracy in order to be successful. When that's the bane right now of our existence. He says, led to push and or pull that majority into helping them and into repairing the damage done, he says, which further weakens their own initiative and independence. This is what they write about us. And I'm just showing you. They know who we are. So here, going back to Ecclesiasticus 29 and 16, as we talk about the American Negro problems and how we don't realize we're the champions, but they know we're the champions. I just read to you from a writing 1920 by another Jewish guy named John Pepper. That's his pseudonym. He go by John Pepper. Within his writings, they explain how powerful we are as a people. They speak to the government's intention and or aim to keep us oppressed. And to say, for anyone that's not dealing with democracy based on a Republican and or a Democrat, they want them to be villainized, criminal, jailed, punished, make them disappear. But Ecclesiasticus 29 and 16, he says, my son, keep the flower of thine age sound, and give not thy strength to strangers. He's saying, don't fool with these other people. These are biblical writings right here. This is what will help us stand up, but a number of us feel like we gotta have the white folks in our business in order to be this or to become that. They're in decline, you all. I don't know if you understand and or know. Their rulership, their dominion, it's in decline. But he says, don't give your strength to strangers. He said, when thou hast gotten a fruitful possession through all the field, he's talking about when you find a woman and she's a virtuous and or an upstanding woman, he says, sow it with thine own seed. Deal with your own people. A number of us, we don't like our people. We think other women are exotic. Our women, our sisters, our mothers are the most exotic women in the world. He says, sow it with thine own seed, trusting in the goodness of thy stock. Do we trust in the goodness of our stock? Hey, you're not going to hear this conversation within Christianity, Catholicism, and or their Judaism. But here he's telling us to trust within our stock. But look, they just wrote it, and what I read to you, they said the superior stock of the Negro is in America. They recorded it that way. He said, so, number 21. He said, trust in the goodness of thy stock. He says, sow thy race. As y'all love to say, oh, you up in the Bible, you talking about race. The Bible itself talks about race. Christianity doesn't talk about race, because Christianity is designed to continue and or to keep white people in position and of power. It's designed to keep the people oppressed. But if we're going to deal with this heritage and the truth within the writings based on the prophecies and the prophets and the laws, if we're not going to wrestle with flesh and blood and we're going to deal with these principles, it said that we should keep our stock amongst ourselves. He says, so thy race which thou leave should be magnified, meaning our children will be strong. Our posterity will be strong. Somebody out there said, oh, you talking about race. No. Based on principle, race is being identified because Judah is the leader. He said, having confidence of the good, of their good descent. Here he says, number 22, and harlots shall be counted as spittle, because a number of us right now today in our corrupt state, we have all sorts of girlfriends and we're dealing in fornication and adultery, not understanding that's a part of our downfall, being undisciplined, being disobedient. And a number of you, you can't stop yourself, but yet you want some money. You want to build a black bank, but you cannot stop yourself from being whorish, abusing women, women abusing men. You can't control your behavior, but you want some money thinking that will fix your problems. He says, and harlot shall be accounted as spittle, but a married woman is a tower against death to her husband. Let me tell you what that means. Let me tell you what that means. A married woman, as a number of you don't find any value in being a married woman, and I almost kind of understand it because a number of men have not raised themselves within integrity to even honor a marriage. We have trust issues going on. We have work to do. But a married woman is a tower against death. Now, this death that it's talking about is speaking about the fornication and dealing with adultery, because we get to go to our wife to not be a part of that transgression. She is a tower to her husband, allowing for him to stay focused on the mission. And whenever he has that desire and or that need, he should turn to his wife, the wife to her husband. But a number of you don't value that today. That really does seem to be insignificant, but we don't wrestle with flesh and blood. We're wrestling with these principles. We don't need money to build black banks and or generational wealth. We need to understand how to govern our mind. First Corinthians, look at this. 2 and number 5. I'm going to read this for you. And I know I may not get finished all of the precepts today, and it's going to be okay. Today, I'm going to let it be okay because I was reading from other writings, other books that other men have written, kind of trying to show you that they know who we are. We just don't know, who we are and how we must get back to the understanding within, functioning within principle. That's where our upliftment starts. Our upliftment, it doesn't start in generational wealth and black banks. 1 Corinthians 2:5, he said that your faith should not stand in the wisdom of men. But right now, that's all we know. Our understanding, it comes from the American institution and or the international institutions because they rule the world. But he says our wisdom should not be in men, but in the power of God. The power of God is centered around the biblical writings, centered around the laws, the principles, the standards, the ethics, the morals. Howbeit, we speak wisdom among them that are perfect. We speak wisdom among them that are perfect. And you say, ain't none of y'all perfect. Which one of y'all is perfect? Who gonna say they perfect? Well, I understand what he mean by among them that are perfect. He's talking about those souls that were chosen before the foundation of the world was created and that follow Christ through the regeneration. These are those that are perfect because they will be refined. They will be raised up. But when you don't have any understanding, you take that literal and say, oh, you think you perfect? That's not what it's talking about. Wisdom amongst them that are perfect. Because when we are refined, that's where we stand in perfection and with immortality, eternal life. He says, yet not the wisdom of this world. So you all have heard me argue months in and months out. There's 2 types of knowledge. There's 2 types of wisdom. Knowledge according to righteousness and knowledge according to wickedness and or unrighteousness. He says, nor of the princes of this world that come to naught. So all the people in this world that you think are smart just because, hey, they got $1 billion or $1 trillion, so you think you need to listen to what they say, it's like their wisdom comes to naught. It's vain. He said, but we speak the wisdom of God in a mystery. We're talking about the values that are centered around principles, but this is a secret. This is a mystery. Because there are no institutions that support the development of righteousness today. He said, even the hidden wisdom, as that's what it appears to be as I come before you and I talk about righteousness and the tenets centered around righteousness. These things seem strange to a number of you. What is he talking about? We just need to get a good education. We just need to get our degrees. Let's get our minister papers. Go to a seminary school. Even the hidden wisdom of God, which God ordained before the world unto his glory. This was ordained before the foundation of the world, you all. That's the perfect people that he spoke of earlier. He said, which none of the princes of this world knew. As I'm talking about these things, there are a number of you that cannot comprehend it because you're tied into the understanding of this world. He said, for had they known it, they would not have crucified the Lord of glory. Had they known it, they would not continue to rise up against righteousness, which they still do to this day. When you start talking about governing your spirit and obedience, you have people that lash out against you. I don't need to hear that. I don't want to talk about that. I could do this and I can do that. He says, but as it is written, I have not seen, nor ear heard, neither have entered into the heart of men. Carnal men that live according to the standards of the world, they know nothing within the allegiance of righteousness. Don't have a clue, but they can be intelligent. They can be smart. They can have wisdom. It's just not a right wisdom or a right knowledge within righteousness. They have the wisdom and knowledge of the world. A majority of us just haven't really come to understand and or distinguish the difference between the two. It have not entered into the heart of man the things which God hath prepared for them that love him. Love him, not talking about the feeling. Love him means those that focus on obedience to these principles, that we struggle, right? For real, we struggle trying to get along in this world because we know how corrupt it is. He said, God have revealed unto them, or God have revealed them unto us by his Spirit. This ain't talking about no ghost when it says by his Spirit. The revealing comes through studying these laws, these words, these principles. We don't wrestle with flesh and blood. We don't have institutions that are out here to make this make sense to us. But he says, if you're committed to it and you're willing to study it, then it will be revealed to you. You can't sit in a classroom and get a grade for this. There's a magic. If you're looking to be thrilled, there's a magic. It must be revealed. He says, unto us by his Spirit. The Spirit is his writings, these words, his law, his testimony. That's his Spirit. Once we get into his writings, then things will start to be revealed to us beyond what a man can teach us. He said, for the Spirit search out all things, meaning when you come to understand the writings of God based on the testimony, based on the prophecy, it deals with all things. The encompassment of knowledge in its totality is written within the Spirit. Do you all see what's being expressed here? It's written within that Spirit of what we identify as God, meaning the thing we serve, the thing we do. He says, yea, the deep things of God. You want to get deep? Continue to study these principles and let it be revealed to you. You'll start to see things that other men will be like, that just don't make sense. It's like me trying to have a conversation with a number of people based on the allegory and pointing out degrees of righteousness and how to look at it. And for a number of them, it doesn't make sense because it's not being directly associated from one man to the next man, but saying you have to perform in obedience within this righteousness in order to be considered. But because of the indoctrination and the other education and information that's out there, they can't get it. He said, for what man know the things of a man, save the spirit of man which is in him? It just means when all you have are the understandings of this world based on their education, that's all you know. You don't know about the revealings of God. You don't know about the Spirit of God, although you may go to church every Sunday. You still go to church every Sunday, but you have the mind of a man. You have the education of men. You have the guidance of this world. He says, even so, the things of God know no man. It doesn't matter you go to church every Sunday. As a man, you don't know the things of God because you're dealing within your carnal mind. You've not yet committed to the point to where you want to sit down and allow these things to be revealed to you because that seems unreal. You think you need to be in a classroom. You think you need to go to a seminary school. And if somebody don't pull out a degree, you feel as if what they're saying has no weight. He said, even so, the things of God know no man, but the Spirit of God, going back to the writings of God, the law of God. These are the things to where you get the understanding, not because you go into church every Sunday. He says in number 12, now we have received not the spirit of the world. He said, we have received not the spirit of the world, but the Spirit which is of God. We don't have the understanding of the institutions. We have the understanding based on what has been revealed to us. And when we talk about these things that have been revealed to us, it seems strange to the people in the world. He says that we might know the things that are freely given to us of God. This is what we're talking about. That we might know the things that are freely given, right? Things that are freely given to us of God. He says, which things also we speak, not in the words which man wisdom teach. So when I get to talking about these things, it's not in the understanding based on how they teach. So once again, it's confusing to a number of people because they're not getting it within their churches and they're not getting it within Catholicism, the Christianity and the Judaism. So it just doesn't seem right. And this is because you're not connected within the vibration of a God centered around righteousness. You're connected within the rhythm and or the vibration of this world and the institutions that they've put in position and or place to make you feel as if you're smart or you have some degree of knowledge and or intelligence. He says, but which the Holy Ghost teach. The Holy Ghost, you all is talking again about when you study the laws, when you study the statutes, when you deal with the principles. That's the Holy Ghost. This is what is then to be revealed to you. That is the Spirit of God. Some folks still don't understand what I'm talking about, because they think the Holy Ghost is play the drums and jump and kick and swing and flip and foam, and that's a ghost, but it's not the Holy Ghost. The Holy Ghost is centered around the writings of the testimony of the law, the principles. Learn these things, and then it's revealed to you within the standard of discipline and or knowledge that you should live by. He said, comparing spiritual things with spiritual. Comparing the things that God have written according to the things that are within the testimony and the prophecy. Staying in line with those things. Anything outside of that is not spiritual, but worldly. Who's training themselves to be the discerner of the difference? Most folks are conflating it, thinking it's all one and the same, but it's not. He said, but the natural man received the things. He said, but the natural man received not the things of the Spirit of God. This is what you hear me saying. If you're tied into the understanding of this world, you will not understand the writings of God. Meaning the things to be done within righteousness, how to serve and or live that life, because you're tapped into the cadence of corruption. You're living within a mind of a contradiction. You don't understand it, may not know it. He says, for they are foolish unto him. When you talk about righteous principles and or standards, or you're explaining to people, you're not wrestling with flesh and blood, but you're dealing with the principles, to them, these things sound foolish. And they think you can dress how you want to dress, do what you want to do, and it's going to be all good, and we don't need the laws, and we just need to have faith. Just blind faith. We got grace, got mercy. So when you speak about the actions centered around what righteousness is, these things are foolish because they haven't received the Spirit of God, meaning they don't understand what's written. They're just educated, indoctrinated. They talk, they sound good, but it has no connection to pure righteousness. Neither can he know them because they're not, neither can he know them because they are spiritually discerned. Proverbs 21:15. He says, it is joy, excuse me. He says, it is joy to the just to do judgment. It is joy to the just to do judgment. Like, we don't want to live inadequately, in error. We need correction. He said, but destruction shall be to the workers of iniquity. Destruction shall be to the workers of iniquity. And this is where you see the state of the world today, in a state of destruction. All they know is iniquity. He said, the man that wander out of the way shall remain in the congregation of the dead. As long as you're tied to the understanding of the world, your mind, your aptitude will be your mind or your aptitude will be considered useless. You might as well be not here, in the ground. The congregation of the dead, it says. Meaning your mental faculty is just not there. Zechariah 13:9, he says, I will bring the third part through the fire. This is where, when he was talking about in 1 Corinthians 15:6, he said, howbeit we speak wisdom to them that are perfect. These are the ones that are going to go through the fire. He says, Zechariah 13:9, and I will bring the third part through the fire, and will refine them as silver is refined, and will try them as gold is tried. These are those that are with him or were with him before the foundation of the earth was created. These are them that are perfect. He said, they shall call on my name, because then we will be perfect. And I will hear them, and I will say, it is my people, and they shall say, the Lord is my God. Then we will be in tune to the obedience unto righteousness. But when we talk about that American, Negro, the problems, these folk know as long as we stay in transgression, as long as we stay tied to our lust, and this is why I say they've created a world where the convenience of a transgression or the ability to be disobedient is on demand 24/7. They'll give however much you want, they have it available for you. They know that's our downfall. Proverbs 21:18. The wicked shall be a ransom for the righteous, and the transgressor for the upright. This world is not going to continue within this state of corruption. The righteous will come on top, and guess what? The Negro will be the face of righteousness. Or if you're just coming in, you may not understand what I'm talking about or where I'm coming from. And if you missed it, I just tell you, go to the YouTube channel. If it means that much to you, go back and listen to what we talked about in some of the books that we introduced, the writings that we're tying into the prophecy, into the testimony. There's a link on the top of my page. Right there, if you go, right there where you go, it says Saturday at 11 o'clock. Right under that, there's a link. Click that link. It'll take you to the YouTube channel. This video will be there. All the other videos centered around Prophecy 2026 are there. Even where we talked about, what was it, life after death, right? That was a really good one. A lot of people want to understand. That's there. This will be there. Just subscribe, to the channel. It'll be there. So he says in Malachi, and let's see. Like I said, I know I'm not going to get through, all of this today. So let me just finish up these last little few right here. Malachi 1 and number 10. He says, who is there among you that will shut the door for naught? Neither do ye kindle fire on my altar for naught. I have no pleasure in you, saith the Lord of hosts. Neither will I accept an offering at your hand. Because we are now being called to do a pure offering. And that pure offering is within righteousness. Obedience to righteousness. That's the offering that we're being called to do, right? Here he says, from the rising of the sun, even unto the going down of the same, my name shall be great among the Gentiles. My name shall be great amongst the nations. And in this sense, he's talking about those nations that went astray from the northern kingdom, that went into idolatry. But the rebuilding of the kingdom, those nations, his name is going to be great. As the kingdom will become one again, the people will become one again, with Judah at the head, with the Negro at the head. He says, and in every place incense shall be offered unto my name. This is where the world is now being ruled in righteousness. You won't be dealing with no Christianity, Catholicism, Judaism. You're going to be dealing with the laws, the statutes, and the commandments centered around the heritage of the people of God, in which the world should be ran according to these policies and these procedures. He says, a peer offering. This is what I'm saying. For us, the peer offering is going to be obedience to righteousness. All these other nations, they're not familiar with that. They rebel against righteousness, as we've done for so long. He says, a peer offering. Then he says, for my name shall be great among the heathen, meaning all the other nations are going to serve within righteousness. Just like all the nations today serve within wickedness. My name shall be great among the heathen, saith the Lord. Malachi 3:1, he says, behold, I send my messenger, and he shall prepare the way before me. Elijah returns. He came as John the Baptist, and he's going to come again as we go through the regeneration process. Oh, go to the video channel and watch Life After Death if you don't know what I'm talking about. Oh, we explained it in detail, in depth. The link to the YouTube channel is right here at the top of the page on the profile, right under where it says Saturday at 11 o'clock. Click that link. It'll take you to the YouTube channel. He says, and the Lord whom ye speak shall suddenly come to his temple. It's not talking about no church. This is what you all have heard me talk about. When he suddenly come to his temple, this is where we go through the transformation. The terrestrial flesh, it falls. The celestial flesh comes into position and into place. Suddenly, he said, in a twinkling of an eye, if you remember, shall suddenly come to his temple. That third that he's going to bring through the fire, and those that he called perfect, they're going to be changed suddenly. And again, like for those of you that are tapped into the understanding of the world, this revelation makes no sense to you. You're like, what in the world is he talking about? He says, shall suddenly come to his temple, even the messenger of the covenant, whom ye delight in, because then shall be the end of oppression. Salvation shall be named in the world. He said, behold, he shall come, saith the Lord. Behold, he shall come, saith the Lord of hosts. Righteousness, it's en route. Number two, he says, but who may abide the day of his coming? And who shall stand when he appear? Those that will abide and those that will stand are those that understand the need to rehearse the righteous acts. Those that were chosen before the foundation of the world. Those that are ordained to be perfect. Oh, I know. For a number of you within the religion, you have no idea what I'm talking about. Thank you all for coming into the live. Tap the screen. That part doesn't cost anything. We're getting ready to close out. You can share the live. You can repost the live. Let me know y'all out there. I see you up there. But let me know y'all out there. Tap the screen. That part doesn't cost anything. He says, who may abide the day of his coming, and who shall stand when he appear? He said, for he is like a refiner's fire. This is what he said. A third he's going to refine. That's what I'm telling you. We all screwed up now, but we're going to be refined. He said, and he shall sit as a refiner and a purifier of silver. We're going to be renewed when we receive that terrestrial flesh. That celestial flesh. Suddenly, we'll be renewed. But don't be lackadaisical with it, you all. Start now by looking at what it means to change your mind. To focus on the ethics and the principles centered around righteousness. Rehearse the righteous acts. Make a commitment. Not to me, not to Christianity, not to Catholicism, not to Judaism. He said the law of the Lord is perfect, converting the soul. Make a commitment to righteousness. There you will find your salvation. If you make a commitment to righteousness, you're also making a commitment to a Christ, to an anointed one, to a Lord, to a Savior. Some of you don't understand what I'm saying because you still think we're talking about Christianity. But a Lord and a Savior is righteousness. Oh, here it is. It's right here. He says, we're reading Malachi 3:3. He said, and he shall sit as a refiner and purifier of silver, and shall purify the sons of Levi, and purge them as gold and silver, that they may offer unto the Lord an offering in righteousness. That's the pure offering now, you all. Ain't got nothing to do with no animals and all that other stuff. The offerings are in obedience to righteousness. That's the pure offering. Number 4, he says, then shall the offering of Judah, that's the Negro, and Jerusalem. Jerusalem is the representation of the northern kingdom, the other tribes. Be pleasant unto the Lord, because now we're doing a pure sacrifice, meaning we're dealing in obedience, but we're also in the celestial flesh. Immortal. Everlasting life. Shall be pleasant unto the Lord, as in the days of old and as in the former years. So here, as in the days of old, he's talking about how it was in a time that we don't even know and don't remember, based on what righteousness was, because all we ever talk about is the fall of man. We don't know what life was like before the fall of man, standing in righteousness. But he says we'll be there in the sense of immortality as the days of old. And then he says, as in the former days, looking at what the trials and tribulations of what the kingdom of Israel had within the short 80 years that it was in existence. He says, and I will come near to you to judgment. He says, and I will be a swift witness against the sorcerers. When we stand in righteousness, we're going to judge the sorcerers. Oh, y'all got to know what we're talking about. A number of you have been so excited about a CERN machine and dealing with this as if there's some real relevance there. It's all sorcery. And this is why they don't want the Negro to wake up, because we will charge them in judgment against all of their corruption. Exodus 22:18, it says, thou shalt not suffer a witch to live. We're not going to be dealing with this corrupt magic, these backward incantations. Those things will not be a part of the world moving forward in righteousness. So those of you that feel as if you're part of ancestral religions and doings and spirits and all of this other stuff, you're not going to make it. Because you are refusing to govern yourself based on simple principles centered around righteousness. You think you can go into magic. You will not be permitted in the world of righteousness. So use this time to correct yourself, to find yourself in the standings or in the halls of righteousness, as you may be a student on day one. Those who make that commitment on day one, you're considered. Just as those who have been in it for 30 years, 40 years, 50 years. Just make the commitment. Not to Christianity, Catholicism, or Judaism, but to righteousness. The law of the Lord is perfect, converting the soul. That's going to convert your soul. That's going to bring you into salvation. The law of the Lord is perfect, converting the soul. You have to learn what these things are. You can't get it in their seminary schools. He said it must be revealed to you. The only way he's going to reveal it to you is you have to show your commitment to wanting to know it. You think you can trick the Creator by just confessing with your mouth that you believe in the Lord Jesus and that's going to get you there? No. You're being observed even in your private time as to how you spend your time trying to understand these things. And here's my last verse for today. He said, cursed be the deceiver. Cursed be the deceiver. No more sorcerers, no more witchcraft. We're dealing with pure righteousness. Cursed be the deceiver, which have in his flock a male, and vow and sacrifice unto the Lord a corrupt thing. Basically, what he's saying is, cursed be the one that says, oh, I want to deal with righteousness, but all you do is go out and you continue to live within an unrighteous life. You can't govern your spirit. Cursed be the deceiver. You keep saying one thing and you keep doing another thing. He says, you sacrifice unto the Lord a corrupt thing. As he said, our sacrifice should be of righteousness, a pure offering in righteousness. But your sacrifice is a corrupt thing because you keep acting and or talking like you want to deal with righteousness, but you keep coming with their corruption, their understanding. He says, for I am a great king. Righteousness is great, saith the Lord of hosts, and my name is dreadful among the heathen. When we talk about righteousness, you all, and when you talk about the Negroes being kings in this earth again, that's dreadful. He says, and my name is dreadful among the heathen. So when we stand up as Negroes, as that Israelite, as being a part of the tribe of Judah, the head and or the leaders, the stewards to rule the world in righteousness, it's dreadful to the colonizer, to the Europeans, and to those that are centered around imperialism and capitalism and democracy and the Republican Party and the Democratic Party. Keep them Negroes oppressed, they say. But when we realize we do not wrestle with flesh and blood, that we're struggling with these principles, you all, things will turn around for us. And just like the righteousness of the Lord, his name, as he said, his name is the word of God. And that word of God is righteousness. The Lord, our righteous. It becomes dreadful amongst the other nations because they don't want to see us come into power. And with that, you all, I say shalom. The Lord our God is one. Thank you all for coming.